It's been long enough now to say that Kashimo is definitely dead, or at the most hopeful is a load of waffled phenomenon floating around till he runs out of cursed energy and then dies. So I feel happy to sit down and make this video talking about Kashimo's philosophy as a sorcerer, how it compares to characters like Gojo and Sukuna, and basically answer the question of why Kashimo was not the strongest. And so if you find yourself entertained at any point during the video, then consider liking, subscribing and ringing that bell. Anyway, on with the video. Kashimo, as we all know, was the self-proclaimed strongest sorcerer of his time, roughly 400 years before the main story. The fact we see him as an old man in such a dangerous time says a lot about his strength, especially given the context that he spent his life fighting other sorcerers and did so without ever using his cursed technique or possessing a domain. Now what we know of Kashimo's life is of course limited, but he seemed to have been one seeking to test himself, to prove his power. Yet by the end of his life, when we see him meet up with Kenjaku, we come to understand that Kashimo had come to a realization that just fighting other sorcerers of his time would not give him fulfillment, is why he never went off to fight Ryu, because the strongest of the time was not the strongest. And so he asked Kenjaku, the centuries old sorcerer, one simple question: who is the strongest? And Kenny replies that that would be Ryoma and Sukuna. Kashimo then decides to reincarnate as a cursed object, all for one strict purpose: to meet and fight Sukuna, to fight the undisputed strongest. And well, lucky Kashimo, he does get to fight Sukuna, and well, we all know what happens. But okay, let's go back a bit and examine why Kashimo held this goal to begin with. Well, one of the central themes in JJK is coming to understand one's individual purpose in life, or more accurately, finding a reason to make your life worth living. Be it money for Mei Mei, or using your skills in a way that will help the most people like Nanami. Becoming fulfilled in Jujutsu Kaisen involves finding something to live for, and since death comes so soon to those of the Jujutsu world, one must also seek to become fulfilled before said death. Which is what makes Kashimo's long life so ironic, as he, despite living so long, never found what he was looking for. Kashimo was someone who valued strength in battle, and so he sought to find his purpose through said love for battle. At first he may have thought just by fighting he'd come to understand, but when that didn't happen he instead came to the conclusion that being the strongest would give him his answer, that in his mind once he reached the apex he would be able to understand it, what his life was for. Yet even after becoming the strongest he still didn't come to any grand conclusion. As we see in his flashback, his life was almost up, yet he still knew nothing, and because of this he accepted Kenjaku's offer. Because he wrongly came to think that the issue wasn't his methods, just that he was too late, that since Sukuna was already dead at this point in time, he would never be able to reach this understanding. And well, this is where the biggest flaw in his mindset makes itself clear, because there isn't some grand truth, some meaning to life. What makes life meaningful is one's own actions and choices. The fact he was seeking for this grand answer is what made him miss the answer that was all around him. I mean, just look at how we first see him in his flashback. Corpses all around, yet his back is to them all. They are behind him, just something he did in the past, not worth looking back on nor acknowledging, because they were just steps on his path to the top. It's very much an ends justify the means mentality, the only issue being that the ends themselves aren't anything to write home about. Kashimo may almost be seeking validation through these high risk battles. By being the strongest he proved something, yet of course when he did become the strongest there was no one there to validate the strength of his. Because well, everyone who came to him did so in their own quest for strength. He'd be alone as he'd kill everyone around him. People seeking the same validation from him, he sought from them. Even though he reached the top, nothing changed. Again, why he, like someone stuck on a hedonic treadmill, sought out something greater. If he was younger, I'm sure he would have gone and challenged the man with the greatest cursed energy output in history. But he was old when he reached the summit and so realised he'd only have a short time left to gain this validation. Hence again the choice to fight Sukuna in the future, to try gain said validation from the greatest victory possible. And even if he was somehow to win, he'd still not gain this validation. He would be left dissatisfied because what Kashimo subconsciously or not sought was kinda just power for the sake of power. Power after all is the one thing Kashimo can be confident in. Kashimo you see as a character with an inability to just sit still and accept who he is. Hence again why he is always seeking validation and greater challenges, because he is not content with who he currently is, and so can never sit idly by and waste a moment where he could be proving himself and his life through battle. something I'm sure is even more so on his mind now he is in a new body and truly understands the limited time human bodies have. In short then, what drives Kashimo is his refusal to accept who he is, leading to him constantly fighting in an endless pursuit of validating himself to the world, which obviously is an endless cycle because at the end of the day the only one who can decide Kashimo's worth is Kashimo. He just didn't love himself and because of that could never be happy, never find a meaning in his life. When he comes to face Sukuna, he comes to confront one very much like him, who enjoys battle, who thirsted for power, but unlike him actually attains the undisputed title of strongest, and more so, was both fulfilled and happy. Sukuna is the ideal self Kashimo desired for himself, and yet the reason he could never be Sukuna was because he wanted to be Sukuna, having a goal with some predefined endpoint, caring only about getting to it no matter the methods. That is not how you become the strongest, because that's not how Sukuna, the Dishonoured One, became the strongest. Sukuna in a way defines the story of Jujutsu Kaisen. Yuji was only special at the start of the story because he acted as a vessel for Sukuna. It was by Sukuna's will that the story came to be. And that's because Sukuna stands as almost the god of the JJK verse. He defines what true power is. I mean, it's no coincidence that the first time we see a domain, the height of Jujutsu sorcery, is by Sukuna's hands. Or that the first time we learn of barrierless domains, again it's through Sukuna, someone who has taken the height of Jujutsu sorcery and made it even more incredible. And this is because he represents true Jujutsu sorcery. And because of that fact, it can be said that his methods and philosophy are what are so important to reaching the pinnacle of power in the story. And what are those? Well, although we still obviously have more to discover as the story goes on, the mindset of Sukuna, in my interpretation, is one who does because he can. Sukuna is a man ruled by his desires because his desires are him. In other words, he is ruled by himself. He fights to have fun because he enjoys it. He kills to have fun because he enjoys it. He eats to have fun because he enjoys it. Everything Sukuna does is for his own sake, to make his own existence more meaningful. If something will bring Sukuna enjoyment, he shall do it, because in his view of the world, why would you not? That is how you fulfill your life, by living it on your own terms. It's not like Sukuna outright rejects connection as wrong, for example. He has Arame by his side as a trusted connection. He sees the value in connection, but only as long as it is for his sake. Arame cooks for him and serves him. Their presence, the connection he has with them, is beneficial to him. It makes his life more fulfilled. You can do whatever you choose as long as what you are doing maintains you at the centre as the most important. Sukuna knows exactly who he is and only does things to fulfill himself more. But what he does not do is try validate himself with said actions. As one who knows themselves does not need validation. That's where Kashimo differs. He doesn't have this mindset because he doesn't value himself. He envisions a better version of himself, which he seeks to attain, but by doing so admits that the him he is now is not good enough. When they fight, we see Kashimo ask the King of Curses a question. Did he become the strongest, or was he born that way? What this question really means is, can Kashimo become like him, or is he destined to not reach the pinnacle because he was not born that way? Once again, it's a loser's mindset. Contrasted by Sukuna, who says who knows, because such things do not matter. All that matters is that he is who he is. Kashimo goes on to express how he could never interact with others because he was too strong. Once again, a statement on his desire for validation, and then asks if the strong are cursed to walk alone in search of limitless power, to which Sukuna replies, greedy. Followed by a comparison to Gojo, as much like Gojo, Kashimo was not one to find meaning in their lives due to power, but instead was chained by it. The fight itself leads to, as you'd expect, the defeat and death of Kashimo. By using his once-in-a-lifetime curse technique, he sought to put his life on the line to find the meaning in it. And well, does he? In his final moments as he talks to Sukuna, we get the insights of the King of Curses. He says that just like how Kashimo challenged him, many others sought to challenge Kashimo, yet he butchered them without acknowledging their strength. Once again, I point to the scene of the bodies behind him. These men sought validation from Kashimo, yet he did not give them anything of the sort. It's why in the modern day during the culling games, he just moans about how weak everyone he's been fighting was. Because he didn't value their strength as he killed them, exactly the same as back in his first lifetime. So why did he expect Sukuna to show him any respect or validation in their fight? Sukuna called him greedy because he was troubled by solitude, even though said solitude was something he brought on himself in his quest for validation. He became strong to try validate himself, yet by doing so excluded himself from others, and then got upset about it. To be strong and also to act like any normal old person, well, that's beyond simple greed. It's unrealistic, and that's why Kashimo never got either, because he was too greedy. He could not accept reality for what it was, and because of that could not find any meaning in said reality. He questioned why Sukuna would become a cursed object if he was truly fulfilled. Why cling to life if he had found meaning in it? And Sukuna replies with the answer to Kashimo's life question. He said he doesn't need anyone else to satisfy himself. It's really that simple. Kashimo asks if being like that gets boring, and Sukuna says no, because even if you don't need people to satisfy you, you can still devour them instead. Basically, don't fixate on having your life purpose defined by others, instead use others as a way to give your life meaning through fulfilling your own desires. I mean, good food makes your life better, but you don't expect to be loved by said food. Your life will never be defined by something you just eat. Kashimo dies, and whether he did so fulfilled or not, we can't say for sure. He got to fight Sukuna like he desired, but unlike with Jogo, or Gojo, you did well, Gojo Satoru. I won't forget you for as long as I live. He did not get praised by the King of Curses, not in such an obvious way at least, but was being validated by Sukuna truly what his life purpose would amount to? Is that truly what would fulfill him? No. Instead, I think he gained satisfaction out of realising the difference between him and Sukuna. Or maybe not. Only Gege knows. But what I can say for sure is that throughout the pans and the batter, Kashimo alone is the waffled one. And if you want to support this channel even further, then perhaps pledge to my Patreon or become a channel member so you can get your name at the end of the video, like Hikari Desu, Rinjak9696, General Tonyos, Mr. Sputum and Matthias Rowett. So with all that said and done, I've been Seth the Sin, the Deadly Sin of Geek, and I'm signing out. Stay safe, everyone.